first and most important teacher was my father, who uh, let me start it when I was 5 years old. And his best teaching was about that the moment I started uh, playing piano, he immediately stopped teaching me and let somebody else take over, because his rule was the parent should never teach the child his child. And but he was always there for me, and a great guide, and a fantastic musician. Um, it was interesting because in the Gnesin Special Music School, which I attended between age of 5 to 18, it's this. That's why it's also called special, because it's sort of a unique system, which I think now they have in China. Um, I think that China inherited this, where you have music and all other disciplines all together in the same school, and basically it combines the preliminary, middle school, and high school together. So you're going for 13 years. You're talking about 2 years of preschool, and then from first grade to 11th grade. 13 years you go into exactly the same building. It's basically, it becomes your home. It becomes your and for me, especially because we lived quite far from the school, and so my mom, who worked across the street literally from the school, preferred me to stay there as long as possible so she could work and then take me home, especially when I was a young kid. We're talking about Moscow in late 80s. It's not the safest place in the world. It really affected not only my teacher there, who was a phenomenal Tatiana Zelikman. I studied with her for 11 years. And It's been stunning how the environment affects you. All my friends, all my other teachers who I communicate with, all came from the same school. It stayed. Sometimes when we meet, it's sort of like this journey back in time. You start being that boy who you were in the school for all these years, and it's very funny because we having a chamber music festival every January in Moscow, which is called a homecoming. And the idea was for us who attended the same school, who now live all over the world, and we all come back and to play chamber music together. And initially, it's been done for us, for ourselves, and then it grew into a very, very big event, which we're all very proud of, because now everybody has these major careers, and everybody, and principal in Vienna, in Berlin, in New York, and all this stuff. So we got together and we having all these receptions and da da da, and we joke and how we used to joke, 30 years ago. And the outsiders who watch this, they don't understand what's going on, because this is absolutely internal thing happening. It's almost like code. We talk to each other because we know each other for 35 years. And that school really affected me as a person. It gave me this passion for the arts, even though by the last year of that being in that school, I did not intend to spend my life doing what I'm doing right now. And it was very interesting because if you're enrolled in that school, it means you're gonna end up being a professional musician. Um, but I just enjoyed myself being on stage and being in this performance kind of artistic thing. My mom honestly wanted me to become an actor. She didn't want me to be a pianist because she saw something in me, this kind of theatrical. And I love theater all my life. I loved going to performances for all kinds of things, and playing in the theater. We had this, we called them cabbage performances, when students kind of do whatever stupid thing, silly thing you may do on stage, unrelated to music. The last year it was interesting because there are several events in my life when happening with no explanation. It's like, if you ask me if I believe in God or destiny, whatever it is, I know it exists because I have no explanation for certain things that really affected my life. And it's like somebody turned on the switch, check. Okay, now, oh, I see. And so that is exactly what happened with my last year in the summer, before my last year in school, where it was Tuesday morning. I remember these things. It was Tuesday morning. I was in my grandfather's countryside house, and it was a rare occasion because it was just me and him. Normally, it's like a big family happening and gathering, and but for some reason that week we were alone. And I woke up and I just realized that this is it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I was not a very good student, so you understand. I was a messy one. I took everything kind of. I like many things. I like a lot of things, and not uh, focused on anything in particular. But that just something changed, and I started being eager to get into Moscow Conservatory because that's last year is everywhere. You start preparing yourself. You start looking around, and of course, the name of Lev Naumov was all over the world, and I could not even think of getting into his studio. It's like forget about it. And so I took some lessons with other professors. I even thought maybe I should go abroad somewhere. I was participating in the festival, which was sort of a festival competition, Neuhaus Festival, uh, and I discovered that Lev Naumov was in the jury, and of course, this like whew, no pressure. I asked my teacher. I said, "Well, maybe," because she asked me. She said, "Would you? What are you thinking? What are you going to do with your life? Where are you going to go?" And I said, "Well, that would be the dream, of course, to study with him, but how is it possible?" And so she went to him and she asked him, maybe Alexander could take a lesson, trial lesson with you. Like, not you don't really say trial lesson, who is trialing who. I mean, really, just maybe so you could hear him, and maybe if there is a spot, maybe. And he heard me in this competition, and he told her, "No need. I already heard him. So just tell him get his theory done." Because we had very heavy entrance exam in theory, and lots of people were just falling. But theory and harmony. So make sure he knows his theory. And so that was, of course, another event that turned my life upside down, in especially in the musical sense. Um, and the whole new world was discovered for me. And those 7 years I spent with him were absolutely astonishing, inspiring, in many ways. Not only as a performer, but also his example inspired me to be engaged in teaching. And sort of, I started teaching early. I started teaching. I graduated from Moscow Conservatory with a bachelor degree, and I entered two different universities. So I entered Russian Ignatin Academy, which is a like a conservatory, yeah, the opposition, the rivalry of Moscow Conservatory, two big universities in the same city. I was invited to teach there um, as a junior instructor, and at the same time, I entered master degree in Moscow Conservatory.
Mm.
And normally people don't do that. He's example of just being passionate, so passionate about music, and everybody's knowledgeable about music at that level. But it's been a true new aesthetics of music, new for me. And then, of course, it came from Neuhaus, where basically the concept of teaching was combining and referring to all arts together, one influencing another. And it's you work with your imagination. You imagine you're a conductor, painter, poet, and all these things. So again, theater. I think these study years were significant in the sense that who I am now as a musician, but it was not an easy kind of natural way. Um, First 10 years were kind of me getting into this environment, and then next 7 years were where my brain exploded, and I really became a servant of the art, as Neuhaus had to say.
Majority of the young musicians don't have that kind of environment. And what do you see that for the kids now in America, especially, that's lacking that kind of environment?
It's a very simple answer to this. In America, and not only in America, unfortunately, there is absolutely no serious pre-college education. What I mean by pre-college, I don't mean last 4 years of pre-college, yeah, what we call pre-college or high school, yeah, for European standard. Last 4 years before university or conservatory, it's a high school where you get in the age of, you know, 14, 15, and so on. I'm talking about preliminary, initial, because where everything starts, and the that's where the talent is discovered. That's where kids grow combining music and other disciplines in a very serious way. Um, right now, normally what's happening, you have a private teacher, and then you go into normal school or you do homeschool or whatever. Private teacher is not a system. Private teacher is not a, you know, something consistent. You can have this private teacher, but piano teacher can give you that much. But being a musician is not just playing piano, not knowing how to play the piano. There is a music history, there's a music theory, and many, many, many other things. And so um, that what made Russian school and European schools are so strong and so important over the years because of this broad background of learning. The power of the strength of that schooling that I had, it was not just in Moscow, it was everywhere. And those music schools were everywhere. Well, the special music schools, to be fair, there were 8 in the country. And but other schools, there was a preliminary school until high school, and then you go to the high school. So again, 2 schools, right? But schools, not private teacher and then tutor. This our system we live in, it's a tutoring system, which is not working if you want really to have high results. You want your child or your student to win competitions, it's one thing. But if you want them to become a musician, well-rounded musician, that's a very different preparation. It's a many years preparation. Preparation, mental preparation, knowledge, theory, harmony, music literature, all these arts and arts are all connected. So we're talking about the system of well-rounded, professional music education. So it's a different philosophy. It's what's expected. The I think the problem here is that in America, teachers are so afraid their students to fail that student is not brought up to the level. It's the level brought down. Level of expectations is brought down. Instead of really making possible for a student to pass and for a student to succeed. Yes, it requires a lot of effort, it requires lots of pressure. But as anything else. And I think until we make it easy for students don't feel the need to struggle. There is no struggle. They struggle of the load, of the amount of things in college. But college for us was the polishing thing. Mm. You polish your talent. You focus on conservatory system. Yeah, you focus on music. We had polyphony. We had harmony. We don't really didn't have theory anymore in that sense. I can tell you, the theory, the harmony year we had it on our first year in the bachelor, and it started with us composing minuets and all these dances in the perfect harmonic form, ending the year with serial music. We had to compose a serial piece. That's it. This is the first year of bachelor. I never say there's no hope. I'm one of those idealists that I think there is always hope. But I think we have to analyze the specifics of American style, American way of doing things, you know. And if in Russia, for example, in Europe, all these things are more centralized. So there is this, you know, federal uh, law, federal project bill of education, which implies goes down to all these local schools and and cities. And here, I think things have to be created uh, from the bottom, shall we say? Yeah. But the problem there is, um, it's all goes to money.
Mm.
You know, the until there is an understanding in local governments that culture, education is the priority.
Mm.
And this is not the problem of America only, in general. Of course, we're fighting COVID and everything, but even pre-COVID times, if there was a cut
Yeah.
in budget, there would be education. And this is I think a crime against humanity. You know, we had a crime against humanity in the during after the Second World War, uh, and I think this is another crime against humanity, where education is completely dismantled, diminished, and the value of education is completely dissolved in minds of young generation. Education, I don't mean overall education, things that you have to take or you can take or you don't have to, this and that. Testing, you know, generalized kind of goal. No, professional education. You know, music. Let's focus on music. What I do know in music, most precious years are early years.
Mm.
And you form your taste, you form your ideas, you form your preferences, your understanding, or at least you nourish, you feed your intuition while you're growing. As with anything else, right? We all know that things that a child absorbs in his first 5, 10 years, then that's it. That's who the personality is. And with music, is exactly the same. And another thing is that, you know, the seriousness of expectation. Um, there are a lot of things. It's a great thing when a child is given an opportunity to enjoy. Yeah. Too much pressure is also could be damaging. But when there is no pressure whatsoever, then it's so. Of course, we're talking about balance, but for absolutely what everything should start with, those schools, that system has to be created, has to be given a choice, and I'm absolutely certain that there will be a demand. The talent didn't go away.
Yeah.
Talent, and I can even say that there isn't more talent than in maybe, you know, 40, 50 years ago. Kids are brighter. I mean, maybe they born brighter. I don't know what's going on. They're so smart. My kids are so smart. Not because of me. If they have been given that opportunity, you would see new Rubinsteins and Horowitz. You know, at least you give this opportunity.
How do you engage them in imagination or creativity when they had very little background?
Well, first I have to say that at Eastman School you rarely find these kind of students. There are two elements: the technical and musical, whatever it means. I can inspire them to open their horizons. I always say, look, you have Sibley Music Library. Sibley Music Library is number one music library in the country after the Library of Congress. They have everything. I have scores in my library that refer Sibley Music Library as a source because they got it from, you know, like Dover, for example. Uh, Go out there and make your research, find out. We talk about the idea of interpretation. You know, what is that? Because for most of them, interpretation. Okay, I need to listen to the recordings because I need to hear how other people play, and I should do the same or try to do as close as possible. And I'm telling them, well, this is not why you're listening to the recordings. You're not listening to the recordings to then to go to imitate. You listen to them and you analyze why these people are doing these things and how is that related to the score, and so forth, so forth. But ultimately, it's your own interpretation. Yeah, and then you cannot really find the right interpretation for you without going into different arts forms, getting into composer's mind, and understand why the composer was writing that way or another, and why Beethoven had to write the Ninth Symphony, or why Beethoven had to write his string quartets, or why Schubert was writing that way, what Schumann was thinking, and all these things. And that comes with literature. And I'm telling, okay, this is very simple. Read what composers were reading. You will understand what inspired them. Entire romantic, they all play romantic music. I said, well, you know that romantic literature existed 50 years before the first romantic composer emerged. And there are, different, for Hoffmann, great romantic novelist, Beethoven was the first romantic. Beethoven said, I don't care what he's thinking. I don't even know what it means. And so, and there is so much to it. There's so much research and analysis of what's been happening. I think only with eagerness and desperation for that kind of study, they can push us through. And that's what I'm trying to help them with. I'm showing them it's not easy. I'm not here to make your life easy or very enjoyable. Here, it's a struggle. It's hard work. This is my work. This is your work. Student is a job, as I say. And so there are certain expectations, and I try to make them understand that this is how it should be, and that eventually will make them better musicians. And I'm very happy for their feedback. But this is what this whole thing about. This is about your emotional and internal struggle for a thought. When we work on the piece, we struggle because we're looking for this only one possible way of doing that. And the best part about it is once you found it, you realize, oh, there is one more, and then another, and another, and there is no end. And it could be very discouraging that there is no end, because perfection doesn't exist. Those who had pre-conservatory training, schooling, or were fortunate to have a teacher during their 10-year private tutoring who was mocking their faces into the books. You have to hire a theory professor. Go find a graduate student who would give you elementary theory or music literature, analysis of the form, all these things. Then you can see those students immediately.